Another structure that we can see on the underside is the location of the optic nerves. This is the point at which the optic nerves from the eyes cross underneath the cerebrum. This area is called the optic chiasma. Another structure that we can see is called the olfactory tract. This is a white line of nerves that extends from the olfactory bulb back into the cerebrum. This is the olfactory tract here, and on this side we can see the olfactory tract here. Inside the brain there are ventricles or openings where cerebrospinal fluid is located. The cerebrospinal fluid circulates through these ventricles. This opening is called a lateral ventricle, and the area surrounding the lateral ventricle, sometimes referred to as being an ear shape, is the corpus callosum. So the corpus callosum surrounds the lateral ventricle. The third ventricle is an area along through here where cerebrospinal fluid circulates. And the fourth ventricle is below the cerebellum. There is a very thin membrane called the aqueduct of Sylvius, or cerebral aqueduct, that separates the third and fourth ventricles. Lateral ventricle, third ventricle, the cerebral aqueduct, or aqueduct of Sylvius, and then the fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle is underneath the cerebellum. Just below the posterior edge of the corpus callosum is a very small pea-shaped gland called the pineal gland. It is below the posterior margin of the corpus callosum. This is the pineal gland. This area in here is called the thalamus, and the circular area is the massa intermedia of the thalamus. You'll see a definite circular area, the massa intermedia of the thalamus. Back into this area is referred to as the hypothalamus. Then this bump, this enlarged area, right in here, designated by this bump in the spinal cord, is the pons. Then following that back to where it constricts into the spinal cord here, this is the medulla oblongata. So you have the thalamus with the massa intermedia, hypothalamus, pons, medulla oblongata, and then spinal cord. When cerebrospinal fluid passes down through the fourth ventricle, it enters a very small canal that runs the length of the spinal cord. This canal on this side, or in the center here, is called the central canal, or the central canal of the spinal cord. It contains cerebrospinal fluid. Now we have a half of a sheep brain that still has the dura mater intact. We left the dura mater on this one to show you the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is attached below the hypothalamus, but it comes off very easily when you remove the dura mater. So this is the hypothalamus, one of the endocrine glands, located just below the hypothalamus, pituitary gland.